It's pep talk time. You always know that on Mondays it's time to, set your mind right, set your goals right, and help you achieve them going into the week. Her name is Akuokor Clinton. She's the chairperson of the Clinton Consultancy. She's a part of the legal team of the GFA. She's a lawyer called a bar in the UK and, of course, in Ghana as well. Needless to say, she's very beautiful.
Thank you.
As Head Start 2.0, you know that the medical field, the legal side, finance, everybody's beautiful. What can I say? Anyways, good morning and welcome to my show.
Good morning, Jake. Thanks for having me.
But let's get into the conversation, and most importantly, a little later, maybe the phones will be open so you can ask your questions as well. Today, we're talking about how to take charge of your financial investments. Very, very important conversation about to go down right about now. Let me put you on the spot, Amanda. And for starters, saving and investing, which one should people be focusing on?
I think saving initially and then let your investments work for you. Because ultimately, I don't think one should always be thinking about working for their money, but let their money work for them in terms of, get a house, rent it, different things like that. But it's always better to let your money work for you and to save as well.
Now, in Ghana, a lot of people have the impression that we have a pretty skewed mindset when it comes to finances. Like I said, very few people tend to invest in this country. Most of the time, they're just saving money or don't even know how to manage their finances. Let's talk about the mindset people should have about money and treating it.
In terms of mindset, I think thoughts create things. It's not the other way around. So how we view money, how we interact with money, how we see ourselves is the doorway to creating wealth, because no one's going to give you your best vision. You have the best vision you have for yourself, and then it grows and grows until you start, acting strategically towards that. And even if you don't have that much money, build a website, go on WordPress.com for $14, play around with it until you create a website, get customers to come in. So it's all about mindset, really.
Okay. So you talk about the way we view money. How should I be looking at money? Should it be a tool for my success? Should it be an element of greed? What should I see or treat money as?
Well, I don't think anybody should be a slave to money, because the love of anything is what's going to be your detriment. It's just like a healthy tool. It's a tool to freedom. It's a tool to doing the things you want. It's a tool to your time in terms of having more time to do the things you want. So I think having a healthy appreciation of money and what it can do for you, and having a healthy respect of not abusing it, is also a very good thing. Now, you've given us 20 principles, which you're going to be looking into some amazing facts as far as money is concerned. She came up with 20 principles to help you take charge of your finances. But before we go into that, what are the strategies that you spoke of, as far as preparing or building a financial pathway? In terms of building a financial pathway, it's always good to focus on what you want. To literally say, this is what I want and this is how I'm going to get it. For instance, if you are thinking of your future and you're designing in your mind, the things you want, you could, for instance, say that you wanted a Range Rover, a white Range Rover with a red top, right? So that's your vision, because it's going to be a sign of success. And the best way to visualize yourself is to think of yourself driving that car and not just looking at the car. And then if you have a friend who has a Range Rover, then maybe start visualizing yourself in that seat. And that's just one example. But in terms of business and strategy, start getting in the position of leadership, even if it's volunteering. you know, until it becomes such a regular thing that you start doing the things you want in order to build your finances.
And in going into this, I've always heard people say, serve before you are served. Should we just typically, like what people do in Ghana, just write an application to a company and then hope that you're picked? Or should we try to be our own boss?
It's always good to serve before you're served, because you're learning. You know, every experience is a learning process and you're developing skill sets. But whilst you're learning, you know, try and get a job like in government, you know, where you could be learning whilst also having some free time to build your own brand and build the things that you want. But it's always best to serve first, because it teaches you discipline. So when you're on the other end of the table, you know how it feels like when people are always late, for instance, to meetings, or you know how it feels like when people aren't professional, etc., because you've been on the receiving end. So that's why it's best to serve first, I think.
Interesting. So let's get into these 20 principles. I cannot wait. Such amazing principles. We may not be able to get into all of them, but grab a pen and as you write, let's elaborate. Let's understand what she meant as far as taking charge of your financial investment. Let's start out with this number one thing. Grow wealth strategically. What that means, what I gather from this point is that wealth doesn't happen by accident. That it's actually a building process?
Yes, definitely. And it's also about writing the vision of your life and making it plain. You know, like, for instance, I have a law firm, and I get certain clients coming to me, some are high profile. And was I surprised that I got these clients? No, because on my website I said that, you know, I do law, I do crisis management, I do communications. So all of us, and I do focus on international law. So the things that I say that I do, naturally people gravitate towards me, and my network, you know, will gravitate towards me. So it's about being strategic, but it's also about believing in your brand and believing in what you want. Because nobody can give you your vision. You know, you have to literally have your own vision.
And she's not lying, because, of course, the GFA came to her to manage their crisis. So it must not be, you know, you must not be joking about that. So very important. Number one, let's grow wealth strategically. Now let's go to don't start without a plan. How important is it for us to have a plan going into building wealth?
Very important, you know, everything from even the Bible tells us, you know, which man who is going to build a tower doesn't sit down and count the cost. You know, how much it's going to take to build this, to build that. And so it's very important to have a plan, because that is what takes you to the next level. And then if everything fails, at least you can go back to the plan, revisit it, and get to the next level.
What types of plans are we looking at? Are we talking education, building skills? What type of plans are we looking at?
It's literally just taking a blank piece of paper and saying, this is where I am now, and then list 10 things. And then on the next page, say, this is where I would like to be. And then on the following page, you know, say how you're going to get there. But it's how you see yourself and what it is that you want for yourself that will get you there.
I like that. So if I get you, on this paper, we should write what we are now, our state right now.
Yes.
On this other paper, we should write where we want to be.
Yep.
And then in the middle, draw a bridge that connects where you are to where you are trying to be. That's an amazing thought, an amazing thought. Moving on, this other one says, protect your reputation. How important is our reputation going into building wealth?
It's very important, particularly because, you know, Ghana is small and the network is very small. And what led to some of my recent breakthroughs was other work that I'd taken on board. And, you know, it was just literally word of mouth. So I think reputation is very important, because however you handle your personal life, your professional life is where you can put a face on for what it is that you embody. And so it's incredibly important that you manage your reputation and you don't get absorbed by other people's idea of themselves, you know, but you're just putting forward what you want as your reputation and guarding it with everything that you have, I think.
A good name, they say, is better than riches, and I totally agree with you when you say that. Be honest in your transactions. The next pointer.
Don't take advantage.
Look, let me tell you the truth. Let me tell you the truth. This is Ghana. In Ghana, if your eye no red, you will make it. That's the mindset we all go out there thinking about. How do I get to make more from this person than I actually deserve? And that's typically how people tend to go into business transactions in Ghana. When somebody tells you this costs 20 Ghana cedis, you know for a fact they are lying. And they themselves know you beat them down, so they intentionally inflate this so that eventually the real price, which is 10 Ghana cedis, will appear. So when you say be honest in transactions, how far would that be important in building wealth?
I think it's very important, but again, it's back to the issue of what are you building? What is it, a service? Is it a product? And if so, how are you marketing it? For instance, with law firms, you know, you've got like 50, 100 plus law firms in Accra alone. But if you're offering a service, for instance, that's international law, that's bespoke, that's very particular, then you're going to raise the prices for what you want, perhaps. And then the clients that are coming want a particular service, and not everybody who's a lawyer in Ghana can provide that service. So that's how you sort of strategically get around that. You brand the product or the service,
and I think
and
quality assurance, quality assurance is what you're talking about when you say that people can trust the brand, that if they come into contact with Clinton and consultancy, they trust that the brand is of a certain standard and they would have their expectations met.
Definitely.
Interesting. We're moving on into some more points. Some things are worth investing in. What are some of these things that we should look at investing in?
Well, for instance, inspirational topics, and you know, it's not just about going to church and not being fed, but go to church where you can be fed in terms of it's teaching you new tools. Find people you identify with and you want to emulate them. Okay. And things like that. I mean, these things help.
Interesting. And we're moving on quickly to leave a legacy. Sadly, some of us, you know, growing up, all we wanted to do was grow, be a doctor, and that's it. But now we're looking at an aspect where you're saying we should leave a legacy. How important is that, and how do we even leave this legacy?
Well, I think a good man leaves a legacy or an inheritance for his children and his children's children. And so it's very important because, you know, particularly in Africa, you know, people build phenomenal businesses, but the one thing that, you know, the World Bank, for instance, would tell you is that they don't leave a legacy for the next generation and so forth, and they don't even write one. You know, sometimes half the battle is just writing a plan for contingency. So I think it's important for wealth creation to also think, what are you building this brand for? Is it something that can be continued with your family or someone else? And just write it down, you know, write the vision down, and, you know, the legacy will continue, but also strategize in how it's going to continue.
Okay. And most importantly, I have one over here that says, grow what you're given. Grow what you're given. What's your take on that?
To grow what you're given is, you might, for instance, naturally be a communicator, but you haven't harnessed that skill. So find a forum where you can harness that skill. Is it joining Girls' Guides and leading a group of people or something? But to grow what you're given is exactly where you are. You can grow. Like I was in church the other day, and the pastor was talking about how these two young boys were in a village, and the village didn't have lights, and they didn't wait for or write to like GE or someone to bring them light, but they literally started harnessing electricity through, I think, potato leaves and something. Oh wow! Literally, I'll send it to you. But it was these little things that could help power batteries and small lamps, and then, you know, it sort of grew and went to different towns. So exactly where you are with the resources you have and with the training that you have, if you start from there and keep moving steadily, you're going to build something. One of the biggest problems that entrepreneurs or people in general, and especially in Africa, everybody's like, Chala, they wait get some 50K or some 500K, then I'll start. I'm waiting to get that capital. But clearly from what you're saying, wherever you are, we can actually start and build slowly till we get to the top. Now, we're going to wrap up here.
And next week, so for those of you who have enjoyed the conversation, we've only dealt with like 10 of the 20 principles. Next week, we're going to come back and continue the importance of how to take charge of your finances. Amanda, your final words.
My final words is you become what you think about and what you dwell on. So write the vision and make it plain, and let everybody see it and know it's very sincere to your message and your identity and your brand, because financial creation is something only you can do, because maybe a traditional job is not going to give you all the money you want. So find something that you can do to create money for yourself.
Interesting. Amanda, I know you're very busy with GFA issues, and of course, like I said, she's part of the, GFA legal team. Madam, can you promise us that you'll be here next week? The viewers are watching. Are you going to be here next week so we can finish your principles of how to take charge of our finances?
I would be honored to join you, Jake.
Amen. Head start. We're going for a short break. When we come back, it's the sports review segment. And thank you once again, Amanda. Stick and stay.